Hey, Hassan.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Did you connect with Danny?
Can you hear me, Celia?
I
Yeah.
can now. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording for a
Okay.
minute. Hello, this is the Goal 1 call. We're doing inclusive field, and today we're going to work on a project canvas together. So just to give everyone watching at home after the fact, in 2017, as we started the ESHIP Summit, came together, talked to a bunch of ecosystem builders, created some framework from conversations that we've had, and in 2018 presented 7 ESHIP goals that were a framework for building ecosystems. Goal number 1 is inclusive field, and since then we've had all these conversations on how we're going to go about doing this together. So there are projects that were, or initiatives that were proposed by the community, about 130 of them, out of which about 30 have been prioritized. At the 2019 summit, we did a hackathon at the summit. I have invited people that were on that hackathon list to join us if they were able to. And they created a canvas for inclusive field. And I shared that with people on the reminder. So I'm gonna bring that up on a screen. And what people did was they share the screen. They put together some ideas, and here is a version of the canvas. It's got the names of the people that took part in it. There is a project description, a name, the goal and initiative, things that you want to do. Basically, what you would see in any kind of customer canvas or presentation form. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these ideas, which you should all have a copy of in the email, and we're going to create an updated project canvas. So can you see this screen that has the current project canvas template? Is that what's showing on my screen? Okay, good. Okay, thank you. All right, so when you want to create a project canvas, I feel like this is like a cooking show. You're going to go in here, click on, so it's basically under project teams on the dashboard, and there's a link to a project canvas. And if you click on the link, this is what you're going to see. And then once you see this, we're going to go under File, make a copy of it, because you don't want to mess with the template, right? And we're going to put together project 1.2. And this is the Ecosystem Builders Speaker Bureau. Is that correct? Yes, people are nodding their heads. Okay, all right. And I'm going to put it into a folder that's going to be in my drive under ESHIP Champions so that it gets saved somewhere. And I'm trying to think if there's a project canvas folder. Is there a project canvas folder in that file, Hassan? Just so it lives somewhere. I'm going to create a new folder. ESHIP.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there is one in there.
Okay. Well, so ESHIP Champions will be the houser of these project canvases. So at least that there's a thing. And here we go. All right. So now we have a new project canvas. I don't think we're going to need the first one, because that's basically what we just did. Was we went to create a copy of the canvas, and then I will upload it to the dashboard. So now here's the participatory part of this. So Amy, Hassan, and Tiffany, do we have a unique and memorable name for this initiative?
That's a really good question.
Well, we only try to ask good questions. Okay, so this is goal 1. Hold on. And I gotta change the font. Goal 1, initiative 2, right?
Just so I'm clear, we want to create a separate, besides Kaleidospeak, which is like an awesome name, we want to create something different than that.
Well, actually, what we can do is we can take Kaleidospeak and bring it to another level. We can. So the idea of the hackathon at the ESHIP summit this year is was to start a conversation and get people co-creating and ideating together. There was no obligation in continuing on past. It was a good exercise for everyone to be part of.
Okay.
We did invite anybody who wanted to be part of an ongoing project. So let's back up a little bit before we dive into this, because I think that's what you asked is a really good question. So when we did these canvases at the ESHIP Summit, there was no obligation to continue in what we were doing. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so we can all kind of look at each other. So I know that, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So there was no obligation for anyone to continue unless their energy was drawn to doing that. What I think we've discovered about some project canvases, and I think that Hassan and Tiffany should probably speak to this. You know, things like, hello, Tiffany. Things like a speaker bureau is, unless you have a speaker bureau or you have the funding to create a speaker bureau, or there's other things like what. So as a popcorn question, let's think about some things that that would make it challenging for people to start a project. So what are some of the pitfalls that we see in starting a project?
Funding.
That's a big one, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about at this stage or after the project has been built out?
Well, so at this stage, because obviously we're not at the stage.
Yeah,
we're not at the stage when people are building it out, right?
Yeah.
Some projects have been built out, like Ecosystem Builder Hub has been something that was created and went forth.
Yeah, I think at this point, it's probably the challenges are people not knowing exactly where to start.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that it's because everyone is still so focused in their own work that they're doing, it's not really knowing how to best collaborate with each other and sort of knowing when to just move forward and take that initiative. I think, you know, Ecosystem Builder Hub has been really strong, and it continues to get stronger, but it almost feels like Jeff, you know, kind of got the ball rolling. You know, he took that first step of an initiative to start the website, and certainly his specific vision and skill set was really what helped him be able to do that, to know how to create a site like that. And then after sort of that ball was going was when all of these opportunities for additional collaboration and expanding that offered itself. And so I think once the ball sort of starts going in one direction, people then know where and how they can best help and be included and involved.
And I think some things like on the Goal 7 call on sustainable work, last week or the week before, we actually did a project canvas for the Ecosystem Builders reading list. And a reading list is probably something that is a nice to have, and we did have a start of one, but it's not something where any of us individually are going to get sustainable work out of it. It's something that we need as a tool, but to take the time and the energy to create a reading list or to curate one, and how do we continue to curate one, makes it very challenging. Like, who's going to own that? How does it keep moving forward? So one of the things that we discussed on the call was, this is a great thing where we could submit the start of a list to something like Goodreads or Amazon or the library. And the Kaufman Foundation actually recently helped support an initiative through the Urban Library Council to have libraries become a hub for entrepreneurship, like a great resource. So they would be able to continue to add to this and maintain it. I mean, that's what libraries are set up for, right? Reading lists and being able to tap into it. So it's a win for the library. It would be a win for Goodreads. It would be a win for all of that. And so we put together a project canvas. It took us 45 minutes or so to put something like that together. And Eric, you've become, wait, that's so weird, because now you've got Malika's picture. So I don't know if it's Malika or Eric that's on the
It's
call.
me. It's me. I've been having problems. Sorry.
All right.
How y'all doing?
I'm gonna rename you so we know it's Malika instead of Eric, because that's a little disconcerting. So how are you? So we're talking about why sometimes project canvases aren't getting made, or why things aren't moving forward. So we've talked about funding. We've talked about don't know where to start. What else did we talk about, Hassan?
And just not knowing where to start.
Yeah.
But I said, I think probably what you just showed, knowing where to find a project canvas. I think people that hop on a call maybe for the first time just may not even know where to go to find a project canvas. So just what you just demonstrated is like valuable for people who are hopping on for the first time.
You know, and I think that that's where some of us don't remember that not everybody has access to all the information, right? So it's really hard, like for Amy, who we're so glad to have on the call, to say, hey, so there's a dashboard, and by the way, from the dashboard, here's where you can find this stuff. So I'm going to put the link to the dashboard into the chat channel. It is usually on the reminder emails, so that everybody has access to it. But there's a dashboard where we will be able to access information. So once you get started on a project, like, who's going to own it, who maintains it, who works on it, those are also things that become a challenge. So if you don't know anybody, how do you even get started, right? So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Is there, Malika, is there another reason that you can think of that we haven't discussed on why people, or the reason that project canvases haven't been happening?
No, that's pretty comprehensive. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to go back and share my screen again. So here we are at the canvas. So this is the dashboard, and your handy dandy community dashboard has all kinds of things, like the people in the community, so ESHIP champions and such. All the initiatives are here. We are under inclusive field. And when you click on the inclusive field, you'll be able to see when the goal meetups are, what the prioritized initiatives are. We're going to be working on 1.2. Here's a template of the canvas that you can click on. Make sure you make a copy. And then any of the goal calls that you might have missed, they're all kind of housed in here. Look at Malika's lovely face, and Tiffany's, and all the people that have been on the call. So then here is the project canvas. So at the summit, we had this. This is the Kaleidospeak canvas that was created by a couple of people that were at the summit. I think there's some great ideas. We shared it in the email. If we like the name Kaleidospeak, then we can call our canvas Kaleidospeak. And I don't know, do you all have the link to this project canvas? Maybe? Or it's in the email that I sent you. I just want to be sure before, if you get a chance to look at this while we're talking about those things, because we've evolved the project canvas just a little bit. So I want to make sure that that we're able to reference as needed. So let's go back to ours. So does anybody have a catchy name, or do we want to call it what they called it?
I like it. I like Kaleidospeak.
Okay. Show of hands. Well, or Malika, you have to chime in because I can't see you. So Kaleidospeak, yes. Okay. Kaleidospeak 2.0. So we're going to go back and I'm going to make sure that I'm typing in black, so that we can see it, right? Kaleidospeak 2.0. Okay. All right. So Kaleidospeak 2.0 is our canvas. It is goal 1.2. And this question is, list other ESHIP goals and initiatives that this may be connected with that are interdependent of this. So, so as a refresher, we can go back to each of the goals and see if there's an initiative that makes sense. So I'm going to try to do this in a timely manner. In Inclusive Field, when you talk about Inclusive Speaker Bureau, what other initiatives do you think have an overlap or some kind of connectedness with this goal? Anything in goal 1?
I think they're all. So if you're building out a speakers bureau, an ecosystem builder speakers bureau, and all of the goals and the initiatives are connected to ecosystem building, then potentially there could be someone who could speak on each and every one of the
Okay.
goals and initiatives in the speakers bureau.
All right. So we're going to list them all. That makes our life so much easier, right? Okay. So going back to what they have as a Speaker Bureau project description, they called it a database of diverse speakers to present on topics of entrepreneurship and ecosystem building. Does that still reign true? Is that something that that seems like the thing that we want to create under this initiative? Do we want to change the initiative or add to it? Is there a piece that's missing?
Can you read that one more time, please, Cecilia?
A database of diverse speakers to present on topics of entrepreneurship and ecosystem building. It's pretty general. So the topics that they speak on are about entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, but the speakers are diverse. Is that enough? Does that cover everything?
Well, Malika, do you have in your memory a year ago when we've had our very first conversation about this and sort of what the ultimate goal is? Like, what do we, even as this call right now, like what would be the ultimate point or goal or hope, purpose of the Speakers Bureau. And I see that as different than a definition.
Well, I think in support of inclusive field, we want to also have people that are identified as experts within that field. And so often we look to people that kind of look like us that we, normally do business with. And so the intention, I think the part of that is, in order to assist people when they're putting together panels or they're looking for people to speak about something or somebody is an expert, that we expand who that can look like. So you have people identified here that are already kind of people diverse, diverse people, whatever we define that to be, in order to speak on these topics. But even as I'm talking, even as I'm speaking, I'm like, is it that we need to make a specialized one? Because I have seen specific ones that are for women. Or is there just a need for this in general, and we need to ensure that it has a good preponderance of diverse people included?
So I could have used this like a couple of weeks ago. I just got a grant to continue my program in the Mississippi Delta, which a lot of those communities are majority minority. And so I'm really trying to make sure that our instructors for the program and mentors and people that are experts in the field are reflective of the communities we're trying to help. But I don't have enough people in my social circle that would identify that way. And so I've been, trying to reach out and using other people's networks. And I've been able to somewhat find people, but some people I'm having to train. And so if I had already had something like this, I really would have used it, I think. So that might be a good example.
So, so the project description seems like it's a little bit more robust than what we're talking about. And here's where I'm going to challenge some of you. And when I do this, know that it comes from a good place. And I am actually a certified in inclusion diversity facilitation. But also I find that sometimes when we talk about doing things like this, like making sure that the speakers are diverse, then there's that slippery slope of tokenism where we have the person of color talking about diversity, or we think about diversity in a certain way. And so I want people to talk about the things that they're passionate about. So sometimes, like last year, it's a perfect example, Tiffany and Hassan were at the Tom Tom Festival with me. And one of the things that I asked them was for them to choose the topics that they felt that they could speak to and wanted to speak to, because they are content experts in several different things. And Hassan, bless your heart for being so flexible and coming in at the last minute when I asked you to. I didn't want to necessarily just pick Hassan to go be on the diversity panel because he's a brown person, right? So that's also challenging because there are content experts in so many different things. I want Felicia Hatcher to talk about tech. I don't want Felicia Hatcher to, not that I wouldn't have Felicia talk about diversity, because she's very well versed. Yes.
Just to, in support of what you're saying, but I thought that was the whole point of the Speakers Bureau, is that these people are not just diverse people to be speaking about diversity.
Absolutely.
But they're experts in their area to speak about whatever the area is, so that your panel, again, and also in support of the other speaker, if your network doesn't include those people, then you have a space for you to go and find people so that you can make sure that your panel is not.
Exactly. So thank you. So that's why I think that the database of diverse speakers to present on topics of entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, to me, is part of the description. I don't know. I think that through this conversation, it seems like there's another facet of diverse speakers who are content experts to speak about. So diverse representation of speakers to talk about content, right? To Amy's point of making sure that happens too. Hassan?
So it's, like, I know we kind of started this conversation in Denver,
Mhm.
and so this should, from what you're saying, this should include not just diversity in terms of how people identify, but diversity of thought. Because if everybody that's talking about a subject, for example, and I keep thinking about, usually you get people that are all from one sector, or you get a lot of tech people who are talking about entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, but people who are in rural communities aren't part of that conversation, or people who are from other areas aren't part of that conversation, or other sectors. So are we just looking at diversity in terms of how you identify, or are we also looking at diversity in terms of diversity of thought and diversity of sector, diversity of perspective? And a lot of that also includes, because they're not like mutually exclusive, because they're connected to each other. But I just want to know if we're looking at diversity just in terms of identity, or where people are coming from in terms of their work.
I think it's a this and. So for me, it's ecosystem building is like improv. It's always this and. So it's what we have. So I think, like Malika pointed out, it's diverse speakers that are content experts, and it's there are presenters with diverse perspectives talking about entrepreneurship and ecosystem. So it's a database of diverse speakers. I don't know, Malika, help me with some words.
I feel like you just said it. It's a database of diverse speakers to speak about as
Content experts.
That are content experts for various things within entrepreneurial ecosystem building.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure we can probably wordsmith it better, but I feel like you got the main point of that.
Yeah, because I feel like and nothing against any other people that worked on the Kaleidospeak thing. I think to what Hassan was saying, they're talking about diverse speakers, like diverse representation, to talk about entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, which I think is important. But I think also what Malika is talking about is that we want more diversity in the database of content experts, right? So more representative of a community.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me make sure that
Okay.
what I'm saying is aligning with what you're saying.
Okay.
So there's two ways to approach this. I don't know, is there a database of content experts somewhere that I'm not aware of where we're trying to add into that? Or are we saying we're creating one and this is specifically when you're trying to add diversity, which, yeah.
So I think that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, is that what we need? So let's take it from a problem solution thing, right?
Yes.
So what's the problem that we're trying to solve for?
Everybody feel free to add in here, but I think the problem is that when people are creating panels, looking for experts to come, whatever, that similar to what Sis said, my network may not be expansive enough to find these people, which I know they are there, but I don't know who they are. So where's the place I can go to get that information? That's the problem.
I totally agree.
Okay.
And it might also be that there's a missed opportunity to benefit people that may not show up if they don't feel represented.
Absolutely. So it's so the project needs to connect organizations seeking diverse speaker pool. Go ahead. Oh,
So,
yeah.
well, I've heard reference to some way that someone can be of help or be included or involved that is not necessarily being a speaker. I heard mentor, I heard even being on a panel, and in my mind, being on participating in a panel discussion is a whole nother level of involvement and preparation than someone giving a formal presentation. And I think it would be helpful to expand it to beyond just being a speaker, to include all of the other ways that someone can share their expertise, unless if we're using the word speaker to just mean, giving a voice in some capacity, whether it is through mentorship or on a panel or even consulting or whatnot.
So while this is focused on a speaker bureau per se, not necessarily mentorship. So I think in doing that, basically, I want to maybe hone in because I think that yes, there's a need for diverse mentors and people in the ecosystem to help support entrepreneurs. But I want to take the idea that as we're building a field of ecosystem building, part of the big picture approach that we're trying to do here is the reason that Speaker Bureau bubbled up to the top is because that's how we evangelize and move forward in a bigger public setting the initiatives of inclusivity in ecosystem building. Does that make sense? I mean, I think that you are absolutely spot on that we definitely need more diverse supporters and ecosystem builders in a community, regardless, right? For mentorship, for to lead programs, to speak, to do all these things. But this specific thing is more about having people speak to or speak about ecosystem building and entrepreneurship and whatever content. So to Hassan's point, that's why it's interdependent with all of them, because as an organization that's looking for people to talk about ecosystem building and entrepreneurship, that we should hone in on making sure that there's representation from different sectors and different race and color, race and age, and the different demographics. So all the major identity markers, your content experts, and all kinds of things. Does that make sense? So I want to honor that yes, mentorship is part of it, but mentorship doesn't necessarily equate to speaking more publicly and broadly, which is, I think, what this project initiative is about.
That makes a lot of sense, but I don't wonder if this is a database, if it could just be a database of diverse content experts, and then within that, say if speaking is their strength or whatever, so then it could be sorted. If someone is looking for a speaker, then they could look here, or if someone is looking for a co-author, they could look here. But I mean, and I guess we didn't even really answer your question, Malika, about, does a database of content experts even exist somewhere like that we're adding to, or is this a creation of a new one?
Yep, you're muted.
All right. Well, I don't have the answer to that question. That was my question. But in terms of what Tiffany just said, and so I don't want to squabble over it really, but I think I agree with Cecilia in that, again, our goal is to look up, right? So we're kind of looking across the field. And when I say panel people, what I mean is speakers that are able to speak and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking conferences, like where you're putting together conferences, or, you're pulling people together to have these high level conversations. You might be looking for consultants or something like that to work on this type of work. And so I see this as that. So, and here's another thought. If there is not a database that is out there, that's fine. But I think we should continue to focus on diversity first, or this inclusiveness first, and then we can expand it out. Because if we start there, then it's going to automatically be inclusive. Versus if we start the other way, then we'll be trying to like
Pigeonhole.
add pepper into the salt. Let's start with the pepper first and then add the salt later. I don't know.
And Tiffany, I think that unfortunately or fortunately, a database of ecosystem builders is like everybody in your head, and everybody who who knows somebody who knows them. That's basically our database. I think that because people are coming into this work all the time, it's really hard. I mean, unless we start creating this place where, and it's not to say that it can't happen. Lord knows, if Christine gets this Airtable thing going that we want to create, that would be like, you sign up. If you've ever heard about ESHIP or heard from somebody or anything like that, like, add your name to this. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you look like, what you sound like, what you talk about, what you geek out about, like, where are you? Like, all those things, like, sign up. And that would be like the biggest Rolodex database that we could come up with. And then if some of you become speakers, then maybe we tag and flag. But I think it's challenging. And if we started that way and then honed down to speakers, we'd have a lot of work to do. And it would have to be probably a little bit more nominating than to start adding people that we know to this and then hand it over to somebody. Okay, so going back to what Malika said, a database of diverse speakers who are content experts on various topics, right? And particularly
related to ecosystem building, right?
Okay. Diverse topics related to ecosystem building. And we're going to focus on ecosystem building versus entrepreneurship, only because we're creating a professional field of ecosystem builders. Or do we talk about people related to entrepreneurship in that, because people that run accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces are your ecosystem, are our ecosystem builders, that we should include the term entrepreneurship as well?
I have another question about the wording.
Okay.
So I guess because the way I'm reading this, it's that like the skill and the priority is on the speaker, like their number one job is a speaker, and then they talk about ecosystem building or whatever. But like, I guess in my mind, the way that we're trying it to be if it said like database of diverse content experts who can speak or who are speakers on various topics, like what is their are they speakers who talk on a range of topics including ecosystem building, or are they ecosystem builders who have a skill for public speaking? Does that make sense?
Okay, I've got some feedback. So are you on the phone and on the computer by chance? Okay. Was that you, Tiffany, on the phone and on mic?
I don't think so.
Okay. I see Eric is on the call. Is that you, Eric?
Well, I just muted myself in case it was me. I didn't realize I hadn't been muted. So, so in case there was any audio leaking, yeah, I'm sorry to join so late, but
No, you're fine.
always glad to be part of this conversation.
Okay. And so we're going to get you to chime in because we've been circling around on project description and we haven't gotten to the rest of it yet. There is, I don't know who's at the 248 area code.
Can I answer Tiffany's question there?
Yeah.
That's me. It's Hassan.
Okay. Go ahead, Molly.
And yeah, I understand where you're going with this, Tiffany. I guess I envision like a person, you know, you would be on there, right? And you might say, I'm an expert in these areas, which means, you know, if you're going to be on the speakers bureau, that means you would be willing to speak about those things, right? We wouldn't necessarily add you if you just like, I have all this knowledge, but I want to keep it to myself or I only want to write about it. You know, I don't want to go and speak somewhere about it. So these would be people who would be willing to speak on it. That's
Okay.
what I'm guessing.
I think because we could probably discuss, I think this is a very deep discussion and it's a necessary one. I want to try to get to other parts of the canvas and make sure that we can see what I think Amy, you talked to this point of the value proposition. So I want you to go back to what you said would have been helpful for you, because you know the essential value proposition is for people like you in the position that you were in. So can you share that again?
So I think this database helps ESOs basically have a network that they don't come about organically. And I also think it helps them capitalize on opportunities with disenfranchised people in the audience, perhaps, or people that would think about attending. And it's really long, but.
Okay, so access a network beyond their what? There's a word there. Their current reach,
Sure.
for lack of a better word, and is it better represent
The population at large, or that's probably
Okay.
not the most eloquent way to put it, but.
Okay, I don't know. We can play around with that. What would be, so what's the target market then, Malika?
I think she just named it, right?
ESOs?
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else?
There's also value to these speakers. I mean, if there's an honorarium or an opportunity to get in front of a different audience, I mean, they're kind of the market as well.
Okay, speakers themselves. And maybe event organizers?
Yeah, I was going to add NRPs too, and probably even local government. You know,
Okay.
like people who are just looking for people who are in this area.
So is it anybody who, anyone who,
Kind of economic development people.
okay,
Can I ask a
That
dumb
may-
question? What's an
Yeah.
NRP?
National Resource Provider. I'm sorry, we
It's
use
okay.
lingo, and again, we assume that everybody knows what we're talking about. So a National Resource Provider is an entrepreneurial support organization that has a national reach.
Hmm.
So organizations that are beyond regional. Does that make sense? Although some NRPs are kind of regional. So, so I think that it's basically anyone who wants content presented about entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, right?
So Celia,
Yes.
since we were specific about ESOs and NRPs and local government economic development folks, I mean, obviously conferences are a specific market for the speakers.
Yeah, I think so. That's why I was trying to say event organizers.
Okay.
So that would be your conferences, your corporate speaker people or whatever. Anybody. So anybody who organizes any kind of event or has a reason to have anyone who wants content presented about entrepreneurship and ecosystem building.
Got it.
Is like all of these people together. So what would be our measurement, the measure of success on this? Eric, start calling on people. How would we know we were successful? Anybody?
Number of
Well, just like
speakers
when you're,
booked. Sorry.
Go
that's
ahead.
it. Just like for, I guess if you look at it from a concert perspective, if people book you and ask for you again, you're successful. I mean, if more people are reaching out for speakers, and there's repeat, I guess, performances of the speakers, that's because you can't really measure how people took in the information. I mean, that's going to be difficult to measure, but you can measure how many of the speakers were accessed and how many of the same speakers repeatedly were accessed to talk about specific topics.
Okay, so number of people utilizing this Kaleidospeak and repeat bookings of individuals. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anything else to add? All right. So let's take on human resources required. No human resources required. What is it going to take?
Well, you're gonna need somebody that is going to create the database and maintain it, clean it, that type of keep it updated, maybe. Yes.
Create and maintain database. Okay.
I think we'll also need to continually refer people to the database or communicate that it exists, let them know where to go and how to use it and that it's there.
Okay.
You will be recruiting people to be on the list, kind of, not only referring people to use it, but also add your name.
Right. Okay. Anything?
I think we're talking about a minimum viable product. Is that what we're talking about? Oh,
yes.
No.
We're talking about creating an MVP for something like this.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
So really it would just be like an Excel or a Google sheet that people have access to. I mean, that would be like the most basic, it seems like.
Yeah. So how could we? So this is where that goes. So this question down here: how do you either test the project or get it started? What would pilot an MVP? So we start with Google spreadsheet. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And you could have people that are interested in speaking fill out like a Google form or something.
Okay.
But that might add an extra step. I don't know.
Create a form for submission. Okay. What else would we need for an MVP? Can I ask who the 814 area code is?
Hey, it's Beth.
So,
It's Beth? Okay, great.
so for MVP, you'd also need speakers.
You would be speakers. Okay, yes, for an MVP, we would definitely need speakers. That's good. Okay, so let's come up here and think about what non-human resources would we need.
You need a place to host it.
Okay. Place to house it. That's accessible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, as others like outside of the ecosystem. Inside the ecosystem, accessible to others, period. Okay, so let's, in the interest,
Inside the ecosystem.
I'm sorry?
What does that mean? Like, what's the difference between inside or outside the ecosystem as a place where it's hosted?
So as far as being so in my mind, if you are part of a company like Dell and Microsoft and Intel, they have speakers that come in and talk about certain subjects. If they don't know that this exists, then they'll never find it. So they're not actually in our ecosystem. We talk about people that are in corporate, usually a little bit outside of the boundaries. There are companies like American Family Insurance or other organizations that have connections to ecosystem builders and entrepreneurs. Like American Family has an initiative. They have a building in Madison, all kinds of stuff. So they have connections to the ecosystem, but they wouldn't know to come and look for it, right? So now, next time they need a speaker, they may be able to ask people like Chandra and Scott, who are part of the ESHIP community, and they may turn them onto this list. But otherwise, if you were talking to, I don't know, Southwest Airlines, would they know to come and talk to us or be able to access this list? So that's what I think I mean about outside the ecosystem. Malika, what did you mean by outside or access?
Did I say outside?
I don't know. Maybe I just put those words in your mouth.
Yeah, I would agree with what you say. There are people. This first of all, this terminology, the term ecosystem is still kind of expanding and changing. But I think we mean people who don't use the same terminology we do in general. Like, so they may even be what we consider being in the ecosystem and just don't call themselves that.
Yeah.
So
that's usually the case with economic development people, right?
Yes, that's why I said government, city governments, larger governments, corporations, people who are not really even focused on entrepreneurship. But just an example, the city of Kansas City Health Department wanted to talk to me about entrepreneurship because it impacts violence. When you talk about expanding people's economic opportunities, then you talk about household income increasing, which how children, I didn't even know all this stuff was linked. But, like there are people out there that might be interested in pulling you in, but just are not, they don't call themselves ecosystem builders or don't see themselves, or they're on the peripheral. So.
Okay.
I don't have a word for that though. It's just everybody else that's not us.
So I'm going to put, I think for right now as a placeholder, we're going to put place to house it that's accessible to others, right? So that's everybody, inside, outside, wherever the heck you may be, that'll be fine. Okay, so how could we make this available to ecosystem builders everywhere, and how to ensure long-term success and financial stability? That's the big question. I have an answer, I think, but I want to put it out there. And Eric, you haven't said much, so I'm going to let you lead us off. No pressure. Yes, pressure.
All the pressure. I've had a couple technical difficulties, so jumped in and out, but I've been on the phone again. I mean, really, if folks don't use it, it's not successful. So flipping that around, folks need to be able to start using this, and I think we need to publicize that it is being used. So for instance, if we could find, you know, and I'm not sure if this directly answers your question, but if this could be a tool that's used by, I'm thinking like TomTom or 2 or 3 other events to help identify an ecosystem builder that's providing a voice or an angle on ecosystem building that we're not otherwise seeing, I think that's kind of a success, and we can kind of help leverage that to get the word that this document exists out to other people. I'm not sure if that's quite where you're going for it, but that's where my head went.
Okay. Share with event organizers who are already connected and utilizing, because you're right. I mean, the TomTom Festival reached out to Kaufman, who is a sponsor, and said, who do you recommend that we speak to? And then David Hirsch and I, along with Enoch, brainstormed and invited some of you on the call to be part of the panel. So, so you said something about marketing the success and utilization, right?
Yeah, and just to kind of, you know, sort of build on that a little bit, and our ecosystem building is still nascent, it's still early stage, but if you're, and I'm like a Twitter guy, so when I see things about speaking, particularly at tech, but often around tech and inclusion, sometimes about economics, but usually with some kind of an inclusion angle, I'm regularly seeing different folks who are part of the organizing team promoting these kinds of, almost exactly this kind of thing, except for a different segment of, you know, the work world. So it feels like this is pretty darn shareable once we get it populated.
Okay. Anybody else have any ideas about scalability and sustainability? How do we make it more accessible to ecosystem builders? How do we make sure that it's sustainable? So I'm going to put out a suggestion for people to think about. I've thought long and hard, because at SCN we talked about creating a speaker bureau. I don't think that we should create a speaker bureau. I think that we should connect this list with existing speaker bureaus, because I don't know that that other part about sharing. I mean, the idea is to get more exposure for ecosystem builders and diverse representation of content experts. So speaker bureaus are in the business of getting speaker gigs, and they are sustainable. And they're looking for speakers. They're paid to get people to events and organizations and governments and all of those things. So one of the ways, and I'm not saying it's the only way, but one of the ways that this would be sustainable is that we would be able to present it as a curated list for the National Speaker Bureau and say, here, when you have people that want speakers on entrepreneurship and ecosystem building, these are who we recognize as people that you should call on. Thoughts?
I mean, I'll say I think that's this is my wishy-washy way of saying it. I think that's good, but it feels like it's, in some ways, this is like a little bit of an earlier stage kind of challenge. A different aspect of sustainability, but also kind of the DNA of this that I think is useful is Oftentimes, folks want to get a free speaker. You're getting exposure. That's fantastic. So I think having this, or part of the write-up of this, that folks are expected to be compensated or at least travel covered or some other kind of thing like that, I think that makes it sustainable from the speaker side, because speakers are more interested in being part of something where, part of written into this is not necessarily a contract, but some expectation that anybody who's on this list, if they are contacted, the organization that's trying to bring them out is going to pay them for their time.
Okay. Be sure to have compensation for speaking, right? And I think that's the appeal to me of connecting with a speaker bureau, because those are things that they negotiate. And then it's not up to the awkwardness of somebody who, they're like, oh yeah, you get exposure. And then you're like, well, no, that's not it. So I think you're right. I think it's part of that is compensation. So I will put, yes.
There was a word that was used that I wanted more clarification on. So there was a word, the word curated.
Okay.
Which indicates that there's going to be more human resources activated versus kind of what we were talking about in the MVP, where people are kind of raising their hands.
Okay.
And then two, I don't know, based on what? like part of the reason that curation can backfire, right,
Mm-hmm.
is because of, especially when we're talking about underrepresented people, is because there are expectations placed that may not be applied to other people. And so I just wanted more understanding, and maybe we don't have to have that, but when you talk about curated lists, that makes me, that wording kind of makes me want to make sure that we talk about that a little bit more, what curation looks like.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think that comes here, if I'm not mistaken. So we're talking about how the project will be accomplished and what does it take to get it done. So maybe we put curation with a star and a question mark, right? So we understand that, is it contingent on people to come through and think about the people on the list? Is it people that we advocate for, recognize? Or is it that you raise your hand? So thank you for bringing that up, Malika, because I think that's going to be a big part of this, of how this thing gets executed, lives in that. Like, we could put out a form and a Google Doc, like Amy mentioned, and just throw it out there and have people just add stuff, right?
But that's what we do already for the majority culture, right? We just kind of like, oh, you got a friend, or, not saying that they don't have any experience, but, it's, so maybe it's a reference model in that way, right? Okay. Or we add something like that to it. But
it is not easy. Okay.
Because I'm just like, why does anybody have to be, why I'm I'll leave it. We put a star there. I think that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. We can get.
I think we should totally address this as this moves forward or doesn't move forward, right? So I want to honor everyone's time, because we're a little bit over. I'm gonna go and automatically check yes, we want more people to be part of this conversation. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. I don't know why I can't get it. Okay, and then there's this other page that says that we should, this is to be continued. So I think it's a work in progress. Okay, is that fair? And what I'll do is I will upload it to the dashboard and start sharing it. Is there anything that you would you want to make sure happens or is spoken before we get off the call? Say your piece now.
I think I'll just say Kaleidospeaks is okay, but I don't know how committed people are to that name. So I'm not sure that we want to solidify the name until later.
Okay, so
I concur.
okay, so Kaleidospeak is a placeholder. All right. Anything else to add or note on our project brief, project canvas before it goes out to the public?
You rock, Cecilia.
Yeah.
Thank you for going through this exercise. It's hard, right? It's not it and I mean we talk about the reasons why people don't collaborate and get these things started, and I think that we've just experienced some of that. It takes a lot, and we basically, for the most part, we all know each other. So
Yes.
think about how hard it is for the people that jump on these calls once a month. Or poor Amy, she got like steamrolled into this, and Amy's been on one call,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and she knows Tiffany and she kind of knows me, but that's like, okay, go throw your best ideas out there. No pressure. You can't fail. Yeah, that's hard. So thank
Well, I
you.
think following the conversation, we're all like very familiar with this stuff now, like very familiar. Like we've seen this multiple times. So we kind of have an idea. We talk to people, we've heard conversations around it. So, you know, we're familiar with it and we're coming to it with our own ideas. The only thing I have to say, I think you put a star on there. I can't see it because I'm on the phone. I really am like struggling with the curation piece of it. So that's my latest thing.
I definitely put a star on it. I'm gonna make it bigger. Okay.
Well, just what that is. I just
Yeah. So does it need to be? Should it be? Right?
I like the idea. So I'm not opposed to curation, but I think I just struggle because sometimes when that's not how the world typically works, right? We're not curating on the same things that we often put these kind of skill sets and limitations, right? So then we start to narrow the field when that is not, so other people are able to get experience speaking, even though they might not be, not meet the same qualifications that we might put on a curated list.
It's true. That's very true. Yeah.
And that's kind of like you create systems that replicate issues that are already in the ecosystem. So just continue to keep that in mind. That's all. Because I might not be here when y'all talk about this again.
No. Okay, wait. So can we add to the project description maybe a way to develop, or like we should be able to grow more speakers, right? Or give training or support.
And that's exactly kind of what I was trying to get at earlier, is there are people who are the content experts, but they aren't necessarily those professional public speakers. And that doesn't mean that they can't be or won't be or don't have the capacity to do that job. But if they've never done it before, would they identify and say, yes, I am a speaker? Or would they say more, yes, I am willing to speak?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping, is people that are willing to speak. Because when we pull together, there are people who do the conference circuits. But typically, and I guess I'm speaking at a local level, and even for the even when you talk at kind of conference levels where you're pulling in speakers, those people typically start out with being content experts and are asked to speak about their expertise there, and then over time they become more of a
So,
yeah.
so I think that the project description, it sounds like there's a couple of different things. I think it needs training and skill, like improving skills, right?
I don't
So,
know, like why I'm struggling with. It's not that it's a bad thing, but again, we're approaching it as though the people who will raise their hand need training, and we're not doing that for the general ecosystem community. Like we're not applying those same expectations in a way that if I ask you to speak, that you're also over there getting trainer or something. It's something, there's an implication there that feels uncomfortable to me. And it's my issue, and I'm probably not speaking on it well, but there's sometimes when we create these diverse things, we're coming from a position of lack. Like the reason why you're not maybe getting the whatever is because don't have something, but really it's partly about accessibility.
yes.
Right? That your name is accessible to other people, not that you aren't able to do it. And even if you're a novice, we all started out as novices, right? So,
Can I chime in? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, I'm done. And let me stop pontificating.
No.
I enjoyed this conversation with y'all though.
No.
Well, so the thought, or I hadn't thought of that as being like, and I might be confused about something. So when I think curation, I think that oftentimes when these lists are released, it's like you got 2 or 3 folks whose names are respected. It's almost like a speaker or a content committee for a big conference. You got a few people that help identify some folks, and they've done a job of curating and finding good people, so that they've helped identify those. I think building in the DNA that this is going to be a more inclusive, more representative list, I think that's part of the charge to that group. But I think having that sense that, people we trust did something to say that these are all good folks versus a really totally broad call. But I wasn't thinking about, we need to vet them in terms of, they have some kind of preparation or some other coaching or something like that. That was never on my list or thought about this.
I will tell you that in all visibility, sometimes it's on my mind, and I think that, and I hear where you're coming from, Malika, and I don't disagree. There's a lot to do with access. There's a lot to do with somebody giving someone a chance that doesn't usually get called on. I think that we can all get better at doing things. I think even the best speakers. I know I've also been known, and I shouldn't say this because this call is recorded, but I've been known to point something out to like Victor and say, hey, Victor, like the next time, can we not use that phrase or something? Because sometimes it triggers people. And he's like, did I say that? And so, and Victor's one of the best people I know. And he is incredibly mindful. And sometimes we get into a cadence or just used to saying certain things, and then we forget. I was at something, and they used, because they wanted to really be inclusive and culturally aware, and this company, this global company, used the word Sherpa. They have cultural Sherpas, and cultural Sherpa is something, it's a term that's being used, and it's really offensive to people who are actually Sherpas, because a Sherpa isn't a job. Like, you're not a cultural Cherokee, or you're not a cultural Navajo. So a Sherpa is actually a tribe of people. And what happens is, you get used to saying certain words or hearing certain words, and then it becomes part of your vocabulary. So I want to honor what you're saying, Malika, and yes, absolutely people need to get a chance and to open up access and all of those things. I don't want training and skill development to be a negative. I think enhancing the way people do things. Andy gave me great tips when I was going to go and moderate and facilitate panels. And I came away from the panels I moderated, and they're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And it's not that maybe I sucked less. I don't know, because somebody took the time to give me a tip or a trick or something that they learned along the way. So I don't want it to be a negative thing. Is that fair? And I do also agree with you. I think that there is a slippery slope when you talk about curation, because it becomes who's your favorites, who do you know? You hang out with people that are look, breathe, feel, dress like you, and that makes it very exclusive sometimes. So let's explore that, because I think that's a really, really important conversation.
Well, okay, so I feel like if we're talking about this in general, like we want people who speak on these topics to have these skill sets, to think about these things or whatever, then that should be part of the, like, one of the other goals where we're talking about. I should know the goals, I'm sorry, y'all, but whatever the goal is, where we're like kind of standardizing some things. But I think that where my challenge is, or where I'm at least pushing this to, is the kind of attachment of we're going to create a speakers bureau, and then also say, and as part of our creation of the speakers bureau, we're going to have training and some other stuff attached to it, where everybody needs to be doing the same type of thing. And so sometimes when you position it that way, oftentimes when we position stuff that are specific for diverse candidates, there is this attachment that we need to make you something else than whatever it is that you are. And there's not that same expectation for the majority community. And so if that is an expectation of people who are ecosystems builders, period, then we should make sure that that is we should be looking to create something like that when we talk about training or something like that. Not specifically placing that on the diverse speakers bureau, because it not saying that we all can't get better, but positioning it there, it just, again, creates this idea that if you're in the diverse speakers bureau, if you're a diverse candidate, then you need to be trained or something. There's something already not quite all the way right about you, versus here's just a list of people.
Okay.
So, and probably a better articulate way to say this, but that's what I got.
All right, so I'm going to put some asterisks. So the curation thing is needs to be the curation.
It's not that it's not necessary or that we shouldn't have it. It just is, again, anytime we talk about diverse people, like underrepresented, it's like we got to get you up to par somehow. And that's not your intention. I hear you saying that that's not your intention, but that can be how the person reads it. That can be how it's perceived. Like, oh, let me get somebody from the Diverse Speakers Bureau. They get extra training, so they're going to be okay when they come speak. What?
So
okay.
I want to share with you, like, the diversity panel that I put together at TomTom also included a cis white hetero man. Because those are usually people that are not on diversity panels. Not that they don't have the platform in any other panel, but I think that having, for that particular panel, in having diverse perspectives, talking about entrepreneurship in different ways, was important for me to show that diversity isn't like checkbox type thing. Diversity for me is, here are different ways that that people in the environment, the ecosystem, come to the table as far as major identity markers. So, I think for some people it might have been very counterintuitive to have a cis white hetero man sitting on a diversity panel, but I, in what I was trying to create was a sense that we are all diverse in this environment, and so there's a time and a place, and I think it really has to do with a lot of framing, and it's not to justify or whatever. And I think I don't want the idea of training and skills to just be associated with the fact that it's diverse. I want diversity to be part of it, and trained and skilled speakers to be part of this group, because I know plenty of white guys who get up there and speak, and Lord knows they should not be doing it because they don't do it well.
Exactly. And I think diverse, underrepresented people want to have the ability to be mediocre sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. I won't talk about this more. I'm done. Okay.
No, I love that you talk about this. I do. I think it's so important that you do. Your voice is really important. And I don't think I'm the only one that thinks so, right? Because like Erica's typing away. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to give you back the rest of your day. What else can I help you with before we go? Because I think this has been a really important conversation, and I appreciate all your energy in this. Eric, Tiffany, Beth, anything to add?
I'm sorry I couldn't really participate, but it has been an awesome conversation.
Oh, Eric is on mute, but Tiffany, go ahead.
Well, I second what Beth said. This has been an amazing conversation. And Malika, I'm always so happy when I'm on a call with you, because you always just say the truth and what you feel and what you're thinking. And I just love that about you so much. So thank you so much for being on this call today. I mean, I'm just glad that we were on it together.
Eric's trying to unmute. Here, I'll unmute you. Okay, no, what? Say something, Eric. Wait. This is all this technical difficulty. Dang.
Well, I'll just say my last thing. Thank you. I really like this. This was a really good exercise. I really enjoyed it. And thank y'all for listening to all my out the way kind of ramblings. But, these are the things that I feel strongly about that can get overlooked. Now, that doesn't mean we have to, I'm just me representing me, but I do appreciate y'all at least appreciating my position on it, considering.
This is why we love having you here. So thank you. And I'm going to wish everyone a happy holidays, because the likelihood is I will not talk to you before I take off next Wednesday. So happy holidays. And I don't know. Oh, where are we for next month? I just want to be cognizant. So this would be on January 1st. I'm not sure that anybody wants to do this on January 1st. Would you like to shift it to another day early in the month, or do you want to forego January? Eric's gonna have to type because we still can't hear you.
I'm trying to think of what, so I'm here like from two different directions. And I'm just talking to hear my voice, just to say hi. This is a great group. I don't know. It feels like having a meeting in January would be really helpful, especially if we've got some movement, some further movement on this. I'd love to see this keep moving. So I don't know if that means pushing it back a week or what that means in terms of rescheduling. And I know you are out of the net, so won't be able to help us with that kind of thing. So I'm not sure when we need to make a call on what that date is.
Why don't you email or do it on Slack or whatever, and then if you decide, I will tell you that at 2 o'clock Central Time on the 8th, Connected Networks has a call. So I would do it an hour before. If you're going to do that an hour or two before, it's up to you. If you want to have it on the 8th. If you want to have it later in the week, Fridays are wonky days. People don't usually want to have conference calls. Thursday's okay. It's the 2nd, but people are probably
expectation that.
Yeah. So yeah, I would. My recommendation is if you're going to do it the following week and just do it at a different time. And I can change the Zoom, and we'll send out the reminders that way. But that's totally up to all of you. Okay. All right, you let me know. I'm here to support you. Thank you. Happy holidays. You're a wonderful group, and I appreciate you so much.
Happy holidays, everybody. Hope to see you soon.